I feel as though I have had like a massive revelation at this point in my day, and I feel that it is something that other people need to have an understanding of, or that it may be useful. The issue overall, the topic of discussion, what has sparked the whole video posting is that negative people working with malcontents. So people who are malcontent, and that is what they are. That is the best way I can think of to describe it, but my problem is that this is not the first time I have tried to research this topic and find answers as to how to put up with these people or divert their behavior in the workplace. Because if I'm dealing with a personality disorder or apparent like mental illness of some sort, at least apparent to me, I try to work around it. And this particular issue I have not been able to find closure to, so there's like 4 articles on Google, and today I'm making a video blog.
Oh.
Yeah. Today I got stuck working with a person that really just has upset me, where I am feeling tense and have been like grinding my teeth trying to supervise them. And I always tell people when I come on a job or when they're having work problems that when the seeds of dissent are being sown, one of 2 things is going to happen. That person is either going to get fired or they're going to quit. And you do not want to be involved in that situation, because what they're doing is they're going around and they're trying to rally allies for whatever wrong they feel has been done against them, and really what comes down to is they can't handle the job. But I'm talking about chronic complainers, so can't find information on how to deal with this in the workplace. And it's always try to find a workaround. There's a lot of psychological disorders, and I try to be aware of what's going on with a person, because I don't feel that people deserve disrespect. And if something is biologically wrong with them, their brain doesn't work right, I will try to be respectful in understanding that so that I can keep them happy. Because I believe I like being happy, and I like it when the people around me are happy, and I want to be happy at work. So I'm working through temp agency right now, and the client has me supervising who is coming in from the temp agency. And I don't think that's a good idea, but there's a lot of logistics that could go in it. But anyways, the behavior today was absolutely out of control. And I don't ever want to put up with this or these kind of people again. And the simple fact of the matter is, when you're dealing with laborers, often enough there is something wrong that has put them in the situation where all they know to do is general labor, especially at an older age. And I would say that only accounts for like maybe 25 or 15% of the labor, like basic laborers, and I think it also depends on the job. And one of the words that came to rise to me today when I was listening to business talks, thinking about how much this person really pissed me off, because they got me good enough that I couldn't just brush it off when I got at home. is this guy was talking about his nonprofit, and another nonprofit that only hires vets because a lot of them are unemployable because of PTSD, but they also offer a coaching program to bring them back into the workforce. But then there's other people out there, a lot of the people that I find that have difficulty dealing with these kind of people are like previous drug users who have done it for long enough that they have damaged their brains in a way that they have difficulty coping with reality. People with personality disorders, which could be from substance abuse. Untreated mental illness is a big problem in the United States, and a lot of those people who are mentally ill and aren't as physically apparent in it, like people with autism are, they don't get treated and they wind up homeless. So that's a serious issue, and obviously those are people that would not be able to function in the workforce, and they need to be taken care of. And then alcoholics, even after they're sober, meth users, and for anybody with an understanding of psychology, these things are apparent. For people who don't have a background in psychological studies, it might be more difficult to understand some of the reasons. I'm not labeling people. I am looking at an issue. So, this person that I was working with today, just, there was no break. There was no stop. There was no silence in the talking. And like talking all day, like did not shut up. And not only was it that, but it was constantly complaining about every little thing this person could think of, down to I don't like pork. There was nothing positive said. And I'm trying to supervise this person who has little understanding of the job they're doing in the first place, because this is temp service. And all that I care about is that the person is productive. But this person was not listening to orders. I had proceduralized the work tasks. I do not micromanage. Micromanagement pisses people off, so it is not something that I do. Nobody wants anybody standing over their shoulder telling them how to move their left and right arm all day, so that is not something that I will do. So, and if I'm studying psychology in order to be able to work with people, I am doing everything in my power to be respectful of anybody that I'm put in a position of managing. So, I mean, I just come in and I'm like, this is what we're going to do, this is how we're going to do it. And this is my third day working with this person, but today was especially bad. And so it's proceduralized. There's no reason for a lack of understanding. And then I go back through and I double check the work. If it's not perfect, I don't say anything. I'm not hounding this person about all their imperfections. There's no reason for this person to not be working. And eventually the client called me and asked why our production was so low. And I just told them that I was working with a person that did not understand what they're doing very well. And so eventually they separated us, and that was really nice, because they separated us to go train this person. For me, that was a break. Like, I was able to just work and be productive and get shit done. And with this person yammering in my ear with all this negative shit all day, I have not been able to have a single thought that is my own and consider my own existence, because it has just been hounding. And I did tell this person off like 3 times Like, I tried to be nice about it, and I never stepped outside of the professional boundary, but I got to that point where I said, I am here to work. I am not here to make friends. There is no logistics to debate. We are here to do this, this, and this. And that is all I care about. I don't come to work to be stressed out. I am just here to do what needs to be done. And this person just did not, I mean, if you're being talked to like that, I think that's a warning sign that you're really pissing off the person that you're bothering, and that did not register. And then later in the day, this person is trying to get me to call the manager when we're at the end of shift. We're about to go to the office. Like, so as far as the people who are in charge of our hours and our pay, I am not calling them when I'm going to be in their office in 10 minutes. That is also not my responsibility. It is just as easy, because that person has to check in at the same office at the end of the day, for them to ask that question. And there were a few instances of stuff like that. Can you just do this? Can you call this person? Can you call that person? Will you do this? And over the past few work days, our temp agency has a carpool program, so I've been driving this person to work. I get incentivized to do that. But this person's like been smoking all my cigarettes, and they got paid, and they had cigarettes this morning, and they did not give me any cigarettes back. So I'm blatantly being disrespected. And when I'm working with somebody and they want me to buy them something or give them cigarettes or get them food, I feel bad for somebody who doesn't eat, but there are certain people that's how they roll, and that's what people need to understand. When you are buying food for other people, when you're supplying them with cigarettes, if you're giving them a ride, that costs your money. They need to be responsible enough for themselves to take care of themselves. And it is a disrespect to ask that of another person and not give it in return. And those who are so willing to ask and don't seem embarrassed to do so are the people that I feel are of what should be of high concern as to taking advantage of you. So in trying to understand malcontents in the workplace and how to deal with them when you can't fire them, when you're not in charge of that, I just came back up on the topic of negative people. And I'm gonna stop this video right now and continue it in another segment, because YouTube has its time limitations, and I am not yet registered and don't yet have the intention of registering to process data in a way that could get me paid. That's not what I'm seeking. If I start gathering an audience, then I will change that, but right now we're going with a short video, so I'll be back. So in trying to understand what I'm dealing with, the issue again becomes negative people. And I've done a lot of research over the years to protect myself from harm and still be able to be a good person in the society I live in. And that involves research on like relationship abuse, so domestic violence, verbal, psychological abuse, personality disorders, including very severe, like psychopathy, sociopathy, things like that. So all this research, and typically if I have a fairly normal problem with somebody, I am able to go do some homework and then deal with it in the workplace just fine. But these malcontents are something that has taken me time, and I feel like I've wrapped my mind around this. And I have, in my life, I have big goals, and so I have a wall that I have poster boards on. And when I find something to be a divine truth, like if that's a fact of reality that reaffirms itself, some of it is common sayings like you can't help other people if you can't help yourself, things like that. Because like if you can't help yourself, like if you can't take care of yourself, you really don't have extra to give to other people. And the better you do for yourself, the more you're able to give of yourself to other people. So it's things like that that are on my wall, and that wall is a place for me that when I have problems or when I'm struggling with something, commonly I look at it and I find the answers that I've been overlooking. So I put that up there so that when I'm slipping up or if I forget what's truly important, to keep myself in check from being of detriment to my own existence, due to the feudal nature of my own mind as a human being, as an animal with a prefrontal cortex. That's what I have to do. And what I put on that wall today is negative people use their... It's not negativity is not the word I used. Negativism. Negative people use their negativism to control you. And I find this to be the common factor. And I'm going to break this down in a way to make it clear how and why that functions. How to shut it down is an issue of your own self-respect and how willing you are to stand your ground when confronted with a dangerous person, because that's what kind of people these technically are. Because I looked for articles. I found like 4 articles. There was one that I found that, I'm looking for issues on malcontents in the workplace, and I found a person talking about, well, I keep running into it, and there's only so much I can find. And the person who wrote this article was breaking it down that, like, negative people suck the life out of you. Nobody wants them around. They're typically removed when they pop up. And I always tell people being happy is a responsibility that we have in life. We live in a place that, people die. Bad things happen. We don't control reality. We were born into reality. There is an extent to which we can manifest within reality. So therefore, one must understand reality if they want to get things that they want that exist within reality. Not understanding reality will get a person nowhere if they want something to be a certain way when it simply is not. So therefore, if we are to be happy, then being happy is our responsibility. It's our responsibility of understanding our experience on the earth, and that nothing will ever be perfect, and that what we are experiencing is what we make it. And I could look at all the negative shit, or I could be appreciative of what I have, and that determines my quality of life. And so there are people who understand this and people who seem not to. And on the issue of negative people use their negativism to control you, I read a book called Verbal Abuse. I think the author was Susan something. It looks like it's an older book. It's got a black cover, and it's verbal abuse, real big on the title. And then there's some other words involved in the title that it's just verbal abuse, man. It is the book on verbal abuse, and they talk about that some psychologists are not able to spot it as good as they should. And so it is a recommended read because there are a lot of Most people that I run into do not understand how to have functional relationships with a significant other, and I think it's a very sad thing to see. And it is because they are not educated enough to incorporate their psychology in with the psychology of another person and cooperate as a team with that focus in mind. And personality disorders and all kinds of stuff, and I have become very concerned about the fact I looked up, I dated somebody who would fit the profile of sociopathy, and very quickly decided to end that relationship, and became very concerned about the situation that I had put myself in, wondering if this is a person that if I had stayed in a relationship with would have murdered me. I looked up statistics because the statistics for domestic violence in the United States are very high numbers. And so are the 1,200 women, I think, was the number I found of women who are murdered by their significant other. And I'm not trying to get into a sexist conversation. That's just a statistic that has come into play, and I'm a female, and so I have to look at where are the risk factors and dangers that may come into play with my own social interactions, and how do I keep myself safe while still enjoying life. That's all that is. So, with psychopathy and sociopathy and abusers, typically what you're going to run into is a person with low self-esteem, and this is in that verbal abuse book, but it is just pounding and pounding and pounding as far as what I'm seeing as affirming that is true. People with low self-esteem have a tendency to try and assert control over other people in order to feel better about themselves. This is a person who is not willing enough to look at their own self and improve their self in order to improve their quality of life. They have the victim mentality that what is not working right is not working right because it's his fault or her fault, or circumstances did this to this person. I heard a talk, this guy said that if circumstances were really what is at fault for the sufferings, then why do not circumstances affect all people the same? Whereas one person might go bankrupt, where two people might go bankrupt, one person may wallow in pity for the rest of their life over that happening, whereas another person would see it as motivation to work harder and therefore rise out of the situation. So circumstances are not at fault for our emotional state, and we are responsible for how we navigate our emotions and how we handle our reality. So that is an issue of personal responsibility, and I'm losing a lot of respect for people. I have responsibility in my life, and people who don't understand their basic responsibilities, that are behaving in a blind way, I do not respect them. And anyways, the personality type, a person with low self-esteem likes to assert control over others in order to feel better about themselves. And this also comes out to play with chronic complaining, because it's always everybody else's fault, with a person who's too afraid to look at what they're doing wrong that they could change and do better to rectify the situation they're struggling in. And so therefore the problem that they have is not going to be resolved until they have the determination, which is their choice, that nobody can force them to make, to put the work in to change the circumstances which they claim are making them unhappy. There's a difference between needing advice and complaining because you're frustrated and you're struggling with a problem and you don't have the answer, and being a chronic complainer. Those are two different things. So somebody who is got low self-esteem is an immediate red flag in work, in relationships, and in friendships, or any social interactions, that may be a person that is dangerous for you to be around, that they will take your money, they will take your time, they will bring your stress level up, they will disrespect you, and they may decide to physically assault you at some point in the game when they feel they've asserted enough control, or they have asserted control and they're losing it. Because it's always another person. And when they say that it's another person, it makes them feel better about themselves. They don't want to look at the fact that they're making mistakes in their life. So a chronic complainer is a person you should not deal with, because they are seeking detriment against you, and that includes in the workplace. And I find that is not so apparent in the workplace, and you can't just cut ties with that person. You can't just fire them. But you should not, out of self-respect, you should not put up with it, because it is of detriment to your health and your psychological well-being, and therefore your overall well-being. So this really affirmed that the motives is control with this person that I dealt with working today, with the do this, do that, and then we went to McDonald's after work to get Frappies, and the person, they told us we couldn't get them and to order something else. And so, I mean, obviously their machine is not working or on. And we're at the pay window, and this person's like, you should ask them why we can't get Frappuccinos. And after dealing with this person all day, I looked over and I was like, you can ask them that, because you're more than physically capable. It's not my responsibility. And I don't feel like asking somebody a stupid question while I'm just trying to get my fucking drink here and go down the road. I have to continue this video. I'll be back. So we're talking about at McDonald's. This person is like, yeah, why can't, ask them why we can't get Frappuccinos. And I say, you can ask them that. I'm not asking stupid questions. Like, it's not my responsibility. This person is an adult and they can ask questions. And it was right then, after all day of this behavior, that I realized that this person is trying to manipulate me. Because, like after I said that, she was like, oh, well, the machine's probably not working. It's like, okay, so you wanted me to ask him a question that you already knew the answer to, that's a question that I don't even want to ask anybody. This person is blatantly invading my thoughts. It may be a subconscious behavior or not. It may be a conscious behavior. And this person's getting a kick out of this shit and knows it, but that's how they operate. And that is control. And it is the same behavior that an abuser, a psychopath, would use when approaching a victim. Therefore, that behavior is endangering, and it is absolutely not okay. And if you've ever had to deal with somebody who just does not stop bitching, and you're just trying to do something, and they won't shut up, and you cannot fucking think, and you're in the like you're working on something, and then you like, I'm sure that a lot of you have had this where somebody is like fucking pounding at your brain when you're trying to do a task, and then you fuck up. And depending on what you're doing, that fuck up could be very serious. You might be unattentive from the rattling that's happening in your brain while you're trying to focus, and cut off a finger while using a saw, for example. Or fuck up your paperwork and then get reamed by your boss. So I want everybody to really understand this truth. People are not born equal. People are not necessarily grown equal. We age, and I think that's the majority of this. I don't think so much of it is something that a person was born with, as something that they have caused upon themselves with this as a psychological problem. I do not think it's inborn. It may be to an extent of psychopathy and sociopathy, because these are characteristics of those personality disorders as well. And I don't know, maybe it just is those personality disorders that choose to behave that way, because a psychopath can go under the radar. 1 in every 100 people suffers from psychopathy. In your life, I'm certain you will interact with more than 100 people, so your chances of running into a psychopath at some point are very good. Not all psychopaths are murderers, but most murders are committed by psychopaths. So they are very dangerous people. However, how they manage their psychopathy may vary. And that is something that you should do your own research on, because I will not go into detail about the operations of the psychopathic mind. But that's just the way it is, man. If somebody is just complaining all day, seeking attention, and trying to get pity from you so that you'll do things for them, or trying to get you on their side because they're about to maneuver, etc., etc. Poor, pitiful me. Everybody treats me bad. This whole world is against me. These are people that are dangerous. They're not victims. They pretend to be victims so that they can victimize. There is a difference. I want to make this clear. There's a difference between somebody who seeks advice and actually listens and needs advice because they're dealing with a situation, versus a person who everything's a problem. So if it's one problem, it may be a genuine person, they're just having a bad day. But if it's continuous, you have a problem. And I want this to be clear and to go home with the right-minded people, so that us good people who don't want to live in a shitty world, don't want to manifest a shitty world, and don't want to fuck up our own lives, see this clearly. And for me personally, now that I know what a malcontent is motivated to do, what the purpose of malcontention really is, which is to control others. If they're brushing their malcontent onto me and forcing it onto me when I especially say I don't want to hear it, they are disrespecting me, and they are a person who is trying to assert control over me. That is a malicious behavior. It is a behavior that takes advantage of the emotions. They are playing a game that they have learned to play by testing out what works and what does not work on other people. And it is a game that is based on lies. It is a malicious assault on you and your mind, those who spread malcontent. Malcontents are not people who choose to care about themselves in a way that is positive to this world. They do not choose to care about others. They do not care about others if they seek to manipulate in order to control. The empathy response does not function. They do not care whether or not they are hurting another person. The behavior seeks to intently take from others as a form of sustenance. And when you deal with these people, you will find yourself stressed out, emotionally drained, financially distraught, and possibly physically assaulted, if not murdered, in the most extreme of cases. Do not, under any circumstance, allow yourself to accept the behavior of what is known as a chronic complainer. It appears to be one thing that a person is suffering, but it is absolutely not in any way. And you need to have your eyes open and clearly understand that this is a person that has something in the brain that is not functioning correctly, that is a danger to you. And they do not care whether or not they are hurting you, because they do not have empathetic response. And if you listen, that is what you will hear. Because when you take out the words, what you really hear is me, 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 me. Look at me, it's all about me. These people probably don't say nice things about other people, and if they do, it's not very often. It's about how the world is doing them wrong. Your boss is a jerk. Your boss did this, your boss did that. Look at your boss. We should all quit. We should yell at the boss together. And that is not a accepting of reality perception. That is not a perception that will work with reality in a way that is truly effective. If there is a problem, it needs to be addressed. If your boss did something that was truly detrimental, then the issue needs to be discussed. We are all human beings that are limited to our perception, and it is likely that your boss made a mistake. Unless your boss really is an asshole with an ego problem, and again, control issues that, when spoken to rationally, with respect, in a professional manner, is not receptive, then you might want to leave that situation. But in the issue of people that you have to deal with in life or in work that are malcontent, nothing will make them happy. They will not be happy. That is a choice that a person has to make for themselves. Do not, women, do not try to get someone to change. Do not accept faults that are things that you don't partake in your own life. If a person is avoiding responsibility for themselves, that's what they're going to do the whole time you're with them. Notice this immediately and stop these interactions. When people realize that their bullshit isn't gonna fly, when it's not working at all, when they can't get someone to buy them shit or fucking give them what they want, then maybe they will decide to change their behavior, because then they're dealing with the negative consequences, and for every action there is a consequence. These people are never the types that would help me out, but they always want my help. And so, in management, and in the workplace, and in my business career, if I continue to run Malcontents, if I run into Malcontents, I'm simply, when I realize what's going on, this is how I am going to handle myself, because I realize now that negative people use their negativism to try and control you. And that is the deep, hidden core of what this person is really doing. I am going to tell them to stop. And I am not, under any circumstance, going to tolerate that behavior, because I respect myself.